Good afternoon and welcome to the regularly scheduled board meeting of the Sunshine Coast Regional District for October 9th. It's 1:04 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that the SCRD is located on the traditional territories of the Shishalik and Squamish nations. Directors, we do have an amended agenda in front of us. Item 6.2, item 6.5 I think was replaced, and then item 7.1. Any additional changes or amendments to the agenda? If not, I would look for a motion to adopt as amended, please. Moved, seconded. All those in favor? That's carried. For the purposes of this meeting, I will take physical hands, just because we're all in the room and we've got one member that doesn't have eScribe set up. So, okay, moving on. We have item 3.1, which is the special board meeting minutes of September 18th, 2025. Directors, before we adopt, are there any errors or omissions? Seeing no hands, may I have a motion to adopt the minutes, please? Moved, seconded, all those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Is there any business arising from the minutes or unfinished business that directors wish to bring up from those minutes? Seeing no hands, we will move on. We have no presentation or delegation today, so we're going to move on to item 6.1, which is the Electoral Area Services Committee meeting, recommendations 1 through 6 from September 18th. Directors, before we move to endorse the block, are there any that directors wish to pull for separate consideration? Seeing no hands, may I have a motion to endorse the block? Moved, seconded. Any final discussion on this? If not, I will call the question. Director Bax, is that discussion?
So on page, I'm going to say it's page 3 of the 4 pages on this report, there's a recommendation from my APC for that, for a letter to be produced. And do I have a timeline on when that letter will be produced? It's item recommendation number 1 from on page 3. Shall I read it?
From EAS.
BC Timber Sales 2025-2029 Operating Plan letter recommendation that was brought forward to the board.
Thank you, Director Bax. Be forwarded to the board for consideration.
Yep. It's here now. Is it not?
It's not paid, sorry. Just hold on a second or staff will have a quick look. Oh, GM Hall, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. For process clarity, at Electoral Area Services Committee, when the minutes came forward, this recommendation was forwarded to this specific recommendation was pulled out and forwarded to the board. It's the board's decision to action or not the recommendation as presented or as you might amend it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Bax. Okay, so that being all said and sorted, anything further, directors? If not, motion to endorse, please, all the recommendations. And that, any opposed? And that is carried, thank you. Okay, item 6.2, South Pender Harbor Water Main Replacement Paving Contract Award. And thank you, Manager Waldorf. Was there anything that you wanted to introduce on this project, or?
Could just give a brief intro to it.
Sure.
So the report before board today is recommending the award of the paving contract for the South Pender Water Main Replacement Project. There's an additional request for a financial plan amendment associated with the paving works due to the unanticipated water main break that triggered the start of that project. And it's just related directly to the asphalt repair of the roadway that was damaged by that leak itself and the immediate repair.
Thank you for that introduction. Director Lee, I saw you reaching for a microphone, so I'll go to you.
Thank you, Chair. Just one question before I put forward a motion. On page 3 of 4 there, completion of this section of South Pender water main replacement and the 2 other locations, that work's already been done, I believe. Is that correct? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, the water main replacement and all the repairs are completed. This is just the award for the paving repairs necessary after the fact.
Perfect.
So I would like to make a motion to accept the recommendations as made on page 1
Of the staff report.
of the
Thank you.
staff report. Yes.
And I've got a seconder for that. Thank you very much. Directors, any discussion on the motion? This is voting all directors, financial plan amendment related item. So I don't see any hands. I will call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Manager Waldorf. All right, next up, we have the Selma 2 Reservoir Valve Stem Installation, item 6.3 on the agenda. GM Rosenboom, was there anything that you wanted to add to this, or? I think the report's pretty clear. And, yeah, directors, any questions for staff? I don't see any hands up. There are a couple of recommendations here on page 1 of the staff report. Director Gabius?
I will move the recommendations on page 1 of item 6.3.
Thank you, and I've got a seconder for that. Pretty straightforward. We approved ordering the valve stems. It would make sense that we would approve the installation of the valve stems. And so I will call the question. This is voting all directors. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. All right, moving right along to item 6.4, gypsum container and transportation services contract. There it is. GM Rosenboom?
I can do a quick introduction if you want to.
I mean, I think it's fairly straightforward, but if you've got anything you wanted to add to what was in the report?
Not really. It's more, maybe I can clarify the process. We went out for an RFP, a request for proposals for hauling and container rental. Based on the responses we received, we're proposing to actually purchase containers because it's financially more cost effective than renting them. That's the proposal. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Directors, any questions? Director Bax?
General Manager answered my question because the chart on page 2 of the report, suddenly there's no more rental car charges. That's awesome. I like that. My question is, so when, if I have gypsum to dispose of and I go to our landfill, can you explain to me what's the process there? Because I have people that are coming to me and they're confused about how they can dispose of gypsum, and what, you know, there's dates, there's tests, there's clear bags, there's all these things, and so maybe I could get some clarity as to where to look for the regulations and the protocols. Is there somewhere on our website that would explain all this to me and to my constituents?
Thank you, Director Bax. Little off topic of the contract award specifically. I will look to GM Rosenboom to see if there's anything that he wants to provide at this point. Otherwise, we can follow up offline.
Thank you. Yes, I will follow up offline with the director to ensure that he can provide guidance to his residents. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. All right.
I'll move the recommendations.
You're going to move the recommendations? Thank you. And I've got a seconder for that. I do appreciate staff looking at purchasing these bins instead. You know, it's one of those things that we'll have them forever, quote unquote, so it makes a lot of sense to save money over the long term. So, Directors, any other discussion on the motion? If not, I will call the question. This is all directors weighted vote as well. And all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Next up, item 6.5, which is the Langdale Wellfield Construction Project Alternative Approval Process, Long-Term Borrowing. And turn it over to our corporate officer for an introduction.
Good afternoon. After receiving statutory approval from the province, this report is coming forward for the board's consideration to formally initiate the alternative approval process to seek approval for long-term borrowing to fund the Langdale Wellfield construction project. Staff would also like to highlight an accommodation to this particular process that results from the Canada Post mail service disruption. Specifically, we are recommending the removal of an option to provide mail-in submissions of AAP response forms. Instead, alternate submission methods have been provided per the staff report recommendation on pages 1 and 2 of the report. The removal of a mail-in option is necessary to ensure all electors have equal and accessible ways to participate in the process, despite the interruption in mail delivery. It also reduces any uncertainty within the AAP process itself, since there's no way to predict the duration of the Canada Post service disruption, nor can we be certain how quickly regular mail service would resume should Canada Post come to a resolution within our 30-day AAP response period. Ultimately, we cannot be confident that mail-in response forms would be received by the AAP deadline, and we're therefore recommending alternative submission methods. Staff are happy to answer any questions directors may have about the process going forward.
Great, thank you for that. And yeah, I think obviously that makes sense to remove the Canada Post component for now to reduce confusion. Director Bax, did I see your hand?
Well, I imagine that our corporate officer is going to make sure that this falls within the legislation, that we're not doing anything illegal here.
Yes, our corporate officer is very good at her job.
Excellent, thank you.
Director Stamford.
If there's no other questions, I thought I would move the recommendation as presented on page 19 of the report. So that would be the motion.
Thank you, and I've got a couple seconders for that. Directors, any further discussion? Debate? No? I will call the question then. This is voting all directors. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you. And thank you, corporate officer. Look forward to this process unfolding so we can get on with it, so to speak. And I think our community's been anxiously awaiting Langdale. All right, that's the end of our reports. So next up, we have item 7.1, which is an item of late correspondence. It's in our agenda package. Directors, did you have any discussion or comments on this particular item? Director McMahon?
Sure. I'm very supportive of the proposal from RDOS. This is a problem across BC, is disposal of mattresses, which take up a disproportionate amount of room in landfills, and which frankly should be better built so that they're more recyclable. But an extended producer responsibility program would be a step in the right direction. So there's a possible proposed motion here. Should I that staff prepare a letter on behalf of the SCRD board addressed to the Honorable Tamara Davidson, MLA, Minister of Environment and Parks, regarding updated extended producer responsibility 5-year action plan for mattresses, and that the letter outlines the board's support for efforts to expand extended producer responsibility programs to include mattresses and foundations in the recycling regulations as soon as possible.
Thank you, Director McMahon. I've got a seconder for that. Thank you for reading it because it's not in the actual published agenda package, so those following along online would not have heard, known what our motion was. I know EPR is something that the SCRD has been advocating on quite a bit across a number of terms. And yeah, we did receive the word not that long ago that mattresses were not going to be part of the updated EPR program for the province. And, excuses were provided at the time about costs to consumer and things like that. But, yeah, totally supportive of this, totally supportive of what RDOS is trying to say. And look to anybody else if they wanted to weigh in. Director Inkster?
Yeah, I mean, I said this last week, the policy they put in place by the province is very confusing because people are spending $2,000 to $4,000 on mattresses, especially the king-size ones, and yet they couldn't attach, well, those ones would be very expensive, probably the producer responsibility fee, but they couldn't attach a $25 fee on top of that $2,000 amount. It's deemed to be too onerous for people who spend $2,000 on a mattress or $3,000, right? They put taxes on vehicles that people say they need. So very confusing.
Yep. Thank you. And looking around one last time for hands. I don't see anybody, so I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, that's carried. Okay, we have no motions, we have no bylaws. We do have directors' reports. We've got 10.1, which is sort of general reports. So if directors wish to speak to activities other than UBCM, we'll run through the table real quick, and then we'll go on to an update from everybody about their UBCM activities. So I'm going to start with Director Inkster, and I'm going to work my way over to Director Stampard for just sort of a general board update.
Nothing to say for once today. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Director Inkster. Alternate Director De Andrade.
Thank you. I would, last Friday, I participated of the House Sound Community Forum with all our MP, our MLA that wasn't there, but MLA from Sea to Sky and all the other communities, municipalities that belong to House Sound. I'm just going to quickly, just some highlights. Interesting, the DFO is doing a rockfish conservation glass sponge reef alignment. And it doesn't remove closures, but it will expand areas. So that's all positive because the DFO doesn't have too much of a presence in the sound, even though there's very rich habitat there. And actually, I think apparently it's 9,000 years, the glass sponge coral reefs. So it's a very ancient creature that lays in the bottom of Howe Sound. And even though there's not too much, it's pretty much volunteers trying to monitor and trying to, do their best if they see people go there and fish. But I don't know if this alignment with between the rockfish and the conservation areas and the glass sponge will lead to more DFO presence, but it's something that I really don't understand why not. This is one of the most populated regions in the province. So anyway, they also looking at the Fisheries Act, reviewing the Fisheries Act. I don't know what's the deadline, but I thought it was interesting. Also, the Howe Sound Biosphere initiative, they have now an online training course offered to tourism and outdoor recreational sectors. So I think it's very positive because it can give more details of the ecological value, conservation values of the area, and other highlights. Also, at the Gibson's Public Market for a month, there were 4 sessions about the biosphere as well, delivered by directors of the Biosphere Initiative, including Ian Wynn, alternative director. He was there. It's over now, but I thought it was really interesting. And another interesting stat, it's I mean, the protected areas in Howe Sound include different ecosystems, old growth management areas, marine refuges, wildlands zones, wildlife habitat area, natural reserves, and provincial parks. And over 33% has been protected, which meets the 30 by 30 goal. But in terms of marine areas, only 3.2. So that's the difference. So I will stop here.
Thank you. Director Bax?
Thank you. Yeah, since we last met here at the board, we had a Ministry of Transport meeting in the room next door, and I'm hoping to get a particularly troublesome project on Roberts Creek Road into their financial plan for next year with some help from the rest of the board. So the idea is to bring that forward at an Electoral Area Services Committee meeting so that we can forward that to them. And then the day after that, a bunch of us went to see a Tsunami game, which was awesome. I loved seeing the hockey game, and our team did very well that day. They lost, but they played very hard against the last year's champions, and so that was a lot of fun. In preparation for the UBCM meeting that I had with the Minister of Childcare, I met with the Esprit Childcare Society in Gibsons, and also that same day I was part of the Joint Childcare Committee meeting, and that was on the Wednesday the 17th. We had a rural directors meeting that Friday, and then we were off to UBCM. Since I came back from UBCM, we've had our APC workshop for our rural directors, which was quite interesting. It was from 5 o'clock to 9 o'clock here in the boardroom, and all the APCs were in attendance, and all the regional district directors, the rural directors were in attendance as well. And we learned a great deal about, and we had some final input before the what we've heard report comes out later this month from our planning department, which are doing a bang-up job on this really big project. It's fantastic. And this week I went to the new community action team meeting at the Rockwood. I was this is a frontline. These are people that work with about the toxic drug crisis. And there were some interesting statistics that they shared that unregulated drug deaths per 100,000 people in the Vancouver coastal area, we are number 5 with 40.2 deaths per 100,000. That we've had last year, we had something around 14 toxic drug related deaths on the Sunshine Coast. And so this group has put themselves together. Vancouver Coastal Health, the social services, and there's peer workers, and so they're working hard to try to mitigate the damage that the toxic drug crisis is doing in our community. Most of the people on the Sunshine Coast, the upper and lower Sunshine Coast, only Powell River has it worse than us. Their stats are 66 deaths per 100,000, but they have a very active CAT team, community action team, and they are knocking those numbers down and creating a safer environment for people. And most of the deaths are amongst young men that are working, and they're dying in their homes alone. And there's a certain amount of stigma attached to drug use that these groups are working hard to try to alleviate. And so I really applaud the work that this group is doing. And besides that, I have a lengthy report on UBCM that's available to all the directors. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bax. And I will never not support talking about the toxic drug problem. I've mentioned it in the past. I've got a brother who passed away from this, and if not that the people watching us on YouTube tend to know, but there is a app that users can download as like a safety check-in. And if you don't check in, it will automatically dial emergency services, whether you're responsive or not. And that's the Lifeline app. And so that's a really good tool to pass along to people in community that might need to know about it. So, Director McMahon.
Yes. Well, it has been really busy, even without UBCM, which was busy. On September 27th, I dropped in on the public engagement about New Brighton Dock over on Gambier, and also did a little touring around Gambier, which is always agreeable. On the 29th, the Farmers Institute had a social at Heart and Soul Farm in Sechelt, and I got a tour of the farm, which was really fabulous. I'm really glad I went. Gorgeous view from that property, by the way. October 3rd, I went to the House Island Farm, which I think Ms. DeAndrade covered off pretty well. On the 1st, I attended a workshop for Sunshine Coast Tourism. It was a session on marketing strategies, which it was an interesting session. I then went to the APC workshop, which went over rather well. I enjoyed the opportunity for the APCs to mix it up and have mixed groups from all the APCs working together, and then go back into our own groups to work together. So I think that was valuable. For any of you who are on our MLA's newsletter, there is an update on the crosswalk at Wood Creek Park. So, permits have been obtained and progress is being made. So let us keep our fingers crossed. I don't think it said when the painting crew might get here, but we'll see. Coming up, Saturday, there is an open house for the Gibsons Fire Department from 11 to 2. The Fall Fair is on at Quality Farm and Garden Saturday and Sunday. Next Wednesday, October 15th, is the Elphinstone Community Association meeting, and I think it's going to be a busy one because there's quite a few concerns in the community, and that's before we start talking about our vulnerable coastline. And the next weekend is the art crawl.
All right. Thank you, Director McMahon. Director Gabius.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and make it quick. Last Tuesday, I attended the March for Truth and Reconciliation in Sechelt. It was wonderful. It seems like it's getting bigger every year, which is great to see the movement growing, and always so wonderful to watch the kids dancing and drumming. And there were some great speeches by our local leaders, including our very own Chair Toth, who represented us very well. So thank you for that. And I did attend the OCP workshop for our APCs, and I just want to, just to add to what the other directors have said, I just want to say a good thank you and kudos to staff. It was really well designed. Our APC member, my APC members, anyway, had really good things to say about it. I had I was like, 4 hours is a long time, but it flew by, and got some really good information and good feedback from my APC. So really appreciate that. And great to see all the commonalities too, which I think we all knew we shared, but it was good to have confirmation of that. And then a couple nights ago, I attended the Connect the Coast webinar, where they shared the design of segments 5 to 7, along with some cost projections and next steps. I thought it was important to watch that meeting. I know alternate director DeAndrade was there as well, to get as much information as possible in preparation with our meeting, future meeting with Mott. And their next step is finding the right owner for this project. So that's where they're at. And then hopefully with this upcoming meeting, we can find some clarity. That's it for me. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Director Lee, your turn.
got here rather quick. Well, I've been doing a little bit of stuff. I'll just leave the earliest till last. On October 1st, I attended our APC workshop that basically had community feedback, but then we were getting the APC comments on it. It was a great workshop. I really enjoyed it, and it filled in a lot of blanks, and it's definitely an example of true consultation. I wish the province could do it quite that well. And then on October 2nd, we attended that solid waste intergovernmental meeting. There was sure a lot of valuable information on that, and it brought me current on it. We all, no decisions, of course, it was information only, but the options were exporting waste or putting walls up and filling her up down where she is now. I guess that decision will be made sometime in the future, which way to go. On October 6th, I attended the Pender Harbor Living Heritage meeting. The discussion, just as an observer, but the discussion come around to the fact there was a portable classroom available that's currently on the school grounds in Madeira Park. The Rotary has a project, and they actually have built a new community school, and it's going to sit where the old portable buildings are. There was a option for the community to take it, but the two groups that were going to take it backed out at the last minute. And so the Living Heritage had a look at it and said, yes, it would be a great building to store the museum artifacts and, in fact, display them, because it's big enough to actually display them on a permanent display, rotating display. So they'd really like to move it onto our park that we lease off of School District 46. So I encouraged them to write a letter to us saying what they wanted and asking them to engage us. So we'll probably see a letter sometime in the future on that. And the last item is when I tried to get to UBCM on September 21st, and I started out at 9 o'clock in the morning and actually got as far as Vancouver at 10 o'clock at night. That wasn't the frustrating thing. The frustrating thing was the lack of information anywhere on what was happening. I was advised at 9 o'clock that there would eventually be a ferry, and it's best just to go down and see if you can get on standby. So I did that. Got there at 12:30, and then at 2:30, I watched a whole bunch of people behind me get on a ferry that came at 3, and I had no idea where that ferry come from. It actually turned out that it was the 1:30 scheduled, and they were honoring 1:30 reservations, which actually made sense, but I didn't know. All I knew was I'd been here forever, and people were driving in front of me. And then I had a reservation on a 410, but the 410 wasn't running anymore because it was the fill-in one, and it was canceled. So I did get a new reservation on the 550, but what I didn't know is that sucker was running late and wasn't going to be leaving till 8 o'clock at night. And when I finally got to the gate and said, oh boy, I'm in time for my 550, they told me to go away and come back at 7 because I had no place to park me. So the whole reason I'm telling this story is the communications could have been so much better. And I think if we had an opportunity to meet with the media representatives of the Ferry Corporation, we should do that. Would it help if I passed a motion asking we send a letter to them and ask them to meet with us?
Well, as it happens, Director Lee, if you look in eScribe under 10.2, I've already got a motion sort of drafted as follow-up from
awesome.
UBCM.
Awesome.
And our Deputy Corporate Officer has sort of slid that into the meeting software while we've been talking. So
Awesome.
we'll talk more about it as part of item 10.2.
Oh, okay, so I don't need to make a motion right now. Perfect, because it would have been so so much easier on me that I could have made plans to do something different and show up when I needed to. And all it took was just one paragraph in the website, and I would have known what to do. So it isn't like it was a tough media message. Anyways, that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Lee. Director Stanford.
It's great going last because I was at everything that everybody else has been talking about. And also the great trek to Victoria. I also have my stories. So we're all together in this. I think I want to highlight some other aspects. I participated in the SCRD information meeting on Gambier Island. And it was a excellent way for people to be able to ask questions that wouldn't ordinarily stand up in a meeting or a sort of public meeting environment. This was sort of one-on-one with posters, and it was specifically around taxation. I think, although there was a lot of people that attended, there was some confusion as to what the purpose of the feasibility study was. So I reminded people to go back and look at it again, because a lot of the information they asked was actually in the study. Following that, there was a second public information meeting at Roberts Creek on the Wednesday. So I also showed up at that, and there was some interest at the local market on the New Brighton Dock ownership question. October 1st, that official community plan workshop. I'm always a little nervous about the direction those kinds of workshops go in. My hat's off to staff. That was a really well-run event. People were excited. I think they got it, finally. And hats off to my local neighbors, Roan and Byron, who really stepped up and showed up for Area F. They had some great ideas. What else are we doing? House Sound Community Forum. I always love going, and mainly it's to find out all the other things that other electeds around the House Sound biosphere are doing, their successes, their challenges, and also to have both provincial and federal electeds there really helps provide that perspective and the feedback that we need from them. So it's a very valuable conference to be part of on a quarterly basis. Then October 4th, Gambier Community Association hosted as they framed it, a real public meeting on the New Brighton Dock, and provided sort of outline of the ways the community could get involved and possible ways that they could help resolve this ongoing ownership and maintenance issue. And since then, I've continued to follow up with supporting advocacy initiatives on the New Brighton Dock, and as of yesterday, also advocating and providing communication to other dock considerations now that West Bay Dock has been closed to public access. I think I need a T-shirt, please, somebody. Kate, the dock gal, I don't know. And I also heads up to the solid waste workshop that we had for the day. That, again, very informative. And now we all have a baseline information that we can all work with going forward. So that was great. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm only going to touch on one thing from the sort of regular business, if you will, just because I know it's of interest to the rural directors. Yesterday at Committee of the Whole, we actually had a presentation on the Forest Stewardship Plan update process. And so that was a public presentation, sort of talking about how this FSP process is integrating concerns and feedback and being developed in collaboration with 4 First Nations to cover the Sunshine Coast timber supply area, as well as parts of, the name escapes me, but the next timber supply area up the coast. And so it was quite an interesting process. They acknowledged that they've already been 4 years trying to develop this new FSP. And they also acknowledged that they're, the first ones out the gate in developing a new way of looking at the forests. So that's a plan that will apply to volume-based licenses. So it doesn't apply to woodlots, to community forests and things like that. That applies to the big typical 10-year holders. So that's really my only District to Seashelt update. So we're going to move on to item 10.2, which is UBCM reports. I'm going to start with Director Gabius and go down to Director Inkster, and then Director Stamford, and then Director Lee. So Director Gabius.
Okay, I've got a big one. So this is our first time doing this, so we'll see how it goes. Yeah, I did go all in. Overall impressions that I'm really looking forward to hearing other directors' impressions of the convention as a whole. I did not leave with a spring in my step. I think there was a different feeling this year for me. I think global uncertainty is sort of trickling down, and I think it's gonna show itself in different ways in the coming years. So a bit of a downer, but we'll see that the provincial budget will give us a better idea of how much it will impact local governments, because of course if there's cuts at the provincial levels, local governments, feel pressure to step up and fill those gaps. But and we know that there's already so much that's downloaded from the province. We're already stretched, so we're looking at budget. I'm kind of not looking forward to budget so much, but it's kind of given me a bit of context for our own budget, and what do we want and what can we afford. The issue of engagement, I feel, was woven throughout the convention. The address from outgoing President Mandeo was I think it resonated with a lot of the electeds in the room. There is the message that was conveyed to the province was, slow down, take stock, and engage meaningfully with your willing partners, because the local governments are willing partners, and we do want to be part of the solution, but we need proper resources, tools, funding to help. There was a extraordinary resolution this year. I was not there for the debate, unfortunately, but I'm happy to see that this is happening. We did have 270 resolutions at UBCM this year, and as President Mandeo said, if everything's a priority, then nothing is a priority. So we need to be more focused in our advocacy to the province. So what that means for us, I think in the future, for future UBCM or for our future advocacy, I think that we need to lean on AVICC more for regional issues and not, automatically send those to UBCM, because they will not be accepted anymore. So really, AVICC has a lot of power to advocate for us. So lean on them more. And then we'll have to be more stringent when we're crafting resolutions and really make sure that they will pass muster. And also collaborating with other local governments on resolutions could be a good option as well. I attended the Ferry-Dependent Communities Workshop on the Sunday because Director Stamford was stuck and could not attend, so I stepped in to fill in for her, and I really appreciated that. Was put together by Bowen Island, so by Mayor Leonard of Bowen Island, and I really appreciated the exercise. A little bit like our CP workshop, actually, where we were put in tables, like members of different communities at the same table, and highlighting the issues in our areas and seeing the commonalities. And what I really loved about this workshop is that it led to some outcomes. So one was the letter that was given to BC Ferries on the Thursday session, the call for action letter, and then a potential advocacy group that could come out of that. And so we're going to be following up with Mayor Leonard on that. Then another one of the high points, I guess, like more hopeful points, was the Tiny Homes for Rural Housing clinic by, and I know a few of us attended, so I'd love to hear what other people have to say about that. But Islands Trust is doing some really good work researching how to make tiny homes on wheels legal, and they feel like they're close. So they had a handout, which I've passed on to GM of Planning, on example policies and regulations. And so that work is ongoing, and they're very open. If there's any questions, they're really happy to talk to whoever and try to move this piece forward. It could be a real game changer for housing if that could be an option, a viable option for folks. Attended local government engagement and provincial First Nations negotiations. I'll let someone else speak to this. I'll try and go faster. I went on an electric bus ride. That was super fun. We did go. That was really great. It was awesome. It was quiet. There are chargers on board. We can charge our devices. It smells good. And apparently, there is a Reddit thread kind of dedicated to the greatness of these buses in Victoria. So they are popular, and people really love them. So that was really great. And it was nice to go on a quick tour of Victoria and get the scoop on these buses, because we're getting a couple next year, which is so exciting. UBCM Excellence Awards. So always good to see what other local governments are proud of and want to show off. One that stood out, one of the winners, is the Township of Esquimalt Youth Aquatic Safety and Leadership Program. So they received honors for excellence in service delivery. And this is very similar to what our recreation department does. So training lifeguards, working with schools. So it was interesting. Like it was interesting that they got recognized for this program. I was like, well, SCRD does that as well. But it was good to see all the great winners. Clinic on invasive species. That was mostly an educational. It seemed I had to go part way through, but it seemed more like explaining what invasives are, which ones are in BC, and why they're bad. So kind of lacking a little bit on like what do we do with these invasive species. But I picked up this invasive species toolkit for local government, and there's some really good stuff in here. So I'm going to be looking at that, and I'm looking forward to the solid waste management plan coming out with, I know that invasive species management was one of the strategies that'll be coming up. But this was a very helpful guide. Watershed Security Clinic. I'm almost done. But it's a week, right? And I think it's important that we talk about what all the stuff because there's so much, and I think there's so much that we can glean from each other on this. The Watershed Security Clinic, one of the highlights, one quote that stayed with me, it was from a counselor from District of Lake Country. And she said that there is a concept that watersheds are somewhere else, that they are out there, and that we need to protect them. But watersheds are where we live, where we work, where we play, where economic development is, and they're critical to our survival. So just that shift of what is a watershed? How do we protect watersheds? That, I think, shifting that mindset, I think, opens the door to maybe more collaboration with stakeholders. So I thought it was really great. And of course, Mayor White talked about what Town of Gibsons is doing, which is always good to hear, all the leadership happening here. One very, something that I feel like flew under the radar. Our outgoing president, Trish Mandero, stepped down, and the president, first vice president, second and third vice president, all women this year. And I don't know who noticed that, but I think that's maybe a testament to Trish Mandero's mentorship. So I'm very grateful for her work and really excited to see what the executive is going to do. And then we were able to get one more seat on the executive. So Mayor Brown from Cumberland has been elected director at large. So that's going to be good. It's going to balance out the voices on the executive. It was very, there was not a lot of, I think there was only one representative from AVICC last year. So now that's going to give us another voice, which is great. I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to let someone else take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Director Gabius, have you emailed that to everybody, or will you email that?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Perfect, thank you. Director McMahon?
Yeah, I'll try not to repeat anything. I fortunately traveled on Monday, and thanks to the seniors discounts that I now get, it cost me $6.30 to get from Langdale to Victoria by bus and ferry, transit and ferry. I am elated that I saved that much money for my taxpayers, and I am horrified that I paid so little because we have to maintain our public infrastructure. I paid less than 4 cents per kilometer to go to Victoria. How the heck are we supposed to maintain anything on that? Anyway, I will have a lengthy rant in my newsletter. Managing the conference so that you don't come away completely exhausted and overwhelmed is an ongoing trick. And I haven't learned it yet. I'm still working on it. This time around, I had particular people that I wanted to buttonhole to talk about particular issues, and I managed to find all of them. So from that point of view, it worked okay. I thought the EA forum this year was quite good. They went open mic first, and then went into, I think that was helpful because it cleared the air so that people who were stewing about their issues could, get it out there and then actually pay attention to the programming. The presentation by Christine Boyle, Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs, and Brittany Anderson, Minister of State for Local Governments and Rural Communities, was particularly good and apt for us. That said, my takeaway from this conference was that the avalanche of downloading continues and that local governments are overwhelmed and that infrastructure is failing across the province, and we are really frustrated. Somebody stood up at the open mic and said, is anyone in senior government listening to us? Because they just keep dumping more on us and they don't deal with the issues that we're already struggling with. And I felt that, and I didn't think that the Premier's address actually spoke to that at all. I wasn't impressed that he particularly cares about the children of the province who are local governments. And we're feeling like our family doesn't love us. The UBCM, I was interested in the electoral, the representation on the executive now. They have several positions that are dedicated to Metro Vancouver, so they tend to have heavy representation. But of the 5 area associations, Lower Mainland has 7 reps, North Central has 6, Kootenay Boundary has 4, and the Southern Interior and AVICC both have 2. And, maybe that's not quite enough, but it means that at least every area of the province is represented. And there's quite a selection of different sizes of communities that are represented at that table. So I think that that's quite good. I had the privilege of showing around a constituent from my area who was the summer intern for Patrick Weiler this summer, and he's taking courses at UVic. So I got him a guest pass and showed him around, and that was fun because youth who are interested in politics, boy, we could use some more of those. So I think I'll stop there and let the next person continue.
Thank you very much, Director McMahon. Director Bax, I believe you were the only one to actually submit a written report, so thank you for that. And you're welcome to go through as much or as little of it as you
I'll
want.
hit the highlights. So I just wanted to share with the room and that I ended up in Powell River with these 2 here and a few other directors as we decided to go north. I managed to stop and see a friend in Kleindale on my way. That was nice. I saw a friend in Powell River when I was stopped there for 5 hours. It was his birthday. That was nice. We were on our way across the water, and I got a message from my family saying my handicapped brother in Courtney is at Comox Hospital undergoing emergency appendectomy surgery. And and so I managed to be there to see him. Anyway, that was the ferry kerfuffle. Yes, the ferry kerfuffle actually turned out to be, it took me 14 hours to get to Victoria, but it was an enjoyable trip. So on Monday, we started off with the local government engagement in provincial First Nations negotiations, and I saw I saw the panel included our chief negotiator as well. And then in the afternoon, I went to the libraries on the front lines, and there's a great deal of pressure on our libraries right now. They're dealing with the toxic drug crisis as well. There are people that are overdosing in their public bathrooms, and staff is having to deal with this. They need to have the money that the province is giving them. That needs to be doubled. That's not enough. They're getting 14 million for the whole province, and they need at least 30 million. And most of the money that goes to the local libraries come from the local taxpayers, the lion's share, and so that needs to change. I did tiny homes for rural housing. I got the tiny homes on wheels thing, and I'm really looking forward to try to digging into that a little bit more. I think that's it's a small part of a solution and a step forward. I think that's great. That was Tuesday. I had there was the electoral areas forum on manufactured homes, jobs in prosperous communities, and transportation options all happened at the same time. So I set an alarm and bounced back between the 3 rooms, and I did that twice during the week in order to try to get the most out of everything. The Excellence Awards it was nice to see everybody there. We didn't win, but we got to talk afterwards. That was great. Wednesday, the invasive species risk and community readiness. There's no solutions available. It just seems that needs to be, somebody needs to solve that problem. And then the voting on resolutions began. And I attempted to make an amendment to the extraordinary resolution, and it was voted out of order. But the next day, I was talking in the hallway with someone, and there was a lawyer there, and he said that he thought that the person who brought that the amendment forward was doing the right thing, and I was like, that person was me. And so that was interesting. Then we talked about watershed security on Thursday. Modernizing BC Ferries investment in resilience was a little bit of a letdown. And I met with, on Wednesday, I met with myself and Director Gabias and Councillor Kroll and Mayor White. We met with the Honourable Lisa Baer and talked about childcare, and we're still doing follow-up on that. That was the only minister meeting I had that week, and then the trip home was quite enjoyable as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bax. Alternate Director D'Andrade.
Thank you. My adventure was 12 hours to get from here, from Gibson's to the island. I could have gone to, Europe or Mexico, Hawaii, and still spend time at the beach. But anyways, it was a pleasant trip. But, okay, so I found it interesting because one of the first panel I went was climate hazards, housing risks, and people talk about solutions, fire smart, and so on. But then I had the opportunity to go to the TLA Mayoral Forest Dinner. And so very interesting because they focus a lot on how to make the forest more resilient to fire. And one thing, you can control the fire, but you can reduce the fuel load. And so they said we got 10 times more fuel than we had before. And harvest has been reduced since 2017. And when we reduce harvest due to regulation, a lot of the understory builds up. And so they say forestry has been from climate solution to climate hazard. And they also talk about partial harvesting used in BC to reduce fire risk, remove 50% of trees and still maintain habitat for species and result in healthy trees and fire hazard reduction. And then obviously there was, if we are serious about fire management, we need to get serious about managing our forests, and the fact that 94% of BC in Crown land is Crown land, and if you want to make a decision, it's quite easy. So I'm not like defending any point of view. I'm just, well, one more thing, they talk about that old growth forest it's burning down, and as well as provincial parks. So I just thought interesting that in one way we're experiencing all these fire risks. We don't have to discuss because it's in our face. And then the forestry presenting solutions. Plus, we have the crisis because of the tariffs, and then the wood, building manufacturers home, and which was also, there were 2 panels about it. I went to both. So I think what it's, and that's the part that frustrates me. Okay, so we know we have all this information. Where we go from that, right? Why there's not a quick resolution, right? And I think experience is something that doesn't happen. I don't know why. But I would like to see, because they presented solutions, right? And we have the problem. And the manufactured housing needs wood. So I don't know how we're going to get this quick. Our economy, it's not in great shape. So I don't know how many years it's going to take for all this to be put, for all the puzzle to make a picture. But solutions are presented. And it's frustrating, like our director mentioned, right? That there's no really kind of attention to the end result, I guess, or to make it happen. Another panel that I participated that I thought was interesting. Sorry, I'm trying to find my note. Oh, it was actually our Mayor Silas White participated as well. It was about local watershed boards, empowering communities to build watershed security. And there was an experience for Cowichan Watershed Board. They have been doing work for 15 years. So some of what they talk about, they actually have a publication, anyone interested, because I know we are in the process of trying to attain watershed security and build a board or some governance structure like that. They have a publication, Collaborating for Salmon Resilience from Crisis to Opportunity, a Cowichan Story, where they talk about how they got together, even though it was challenging, but it's a blueprint for the governance. One of the things they discuss about what is the key to success is embracing indigenous ways of knowing at all levels, governance, operations, stewardship, and they also talk about very interesting thing about having a governance structure that centers the watershed as a goal with equal co-chair, not a stakeholder table, where power, there's equal power, is well distributed. So farmers, ministries, DFO, everyone, municipalities, everyone come to the table with the goal of really addressing that. But I think the overall message was also that we cannot really wait, like top down, to help us. We have just to keep building what we know is the direction. And I know we have had a start, because municipalities we are talking about, starting to talk about that. And I believe staff is also talking to SCRG staff. But it's just important that we continue leading the process and not waiting for them to come to us, because as as our director Macon says, they are not like, as kids, we feel a little bit abandoned, but we have to keep screaming, I guess, and building. And when the time and then we can be stronger in presenting solutions. I think watershed security is a big issue. We have to form this governance. And while they don't, higher levels of province don't come on board, I think we have to keep going. So I appreciate any effort that has been done in this regard.
All right. Thank you. Director Inkster.
Thanks. I'm sure glad Director Bax submitted a written report today. Anyway, I have some ideas for Kate before I give my report for you. How about Kate Stanford Dock Watch? Or Kate Stanford, the dock stops here?
Okay, Director Inkster, go for it.
Or
Tell
Kate
us about
Stanford
UBCM.
demands a port for every storm.
Come on.
I'm helping her. Anyway. People, lots of people talked a long time, so I can take a couple extra seconds for that. Anyway, so I spoke at the DOS on a number of these issues, so I'm not going to say a lot here. There were a lot of ministers' meetings that we went to. Regional District does focused ones for them, but always there to support, and I hope there's some follow-up. But we did a lot of ministers' meetings on housing because it's a huge issue on the Sunshine Coast. Emerge management was a good one that we participated in. And also some discussions on transportation and lawlessness in our downtowns, which is always a discussion, either talking to the ministers about this or going to a couple of the seminars that were presented on the issues, how to deal with it through the policing and court system. There was no ferry solutions that we got there again. So that's really, we didn't expect that, but it's just ironic that we missed the one really key ferry meeting for our area because we were stuck not able to catch a ferry. But I just want to say with overall with what's going on with us and a number of people asking for financial support, one of the problems that we have in Canada is there's only one taxpayer, and the province is projecting a $10 to $12 billion deficit. And the feds are projecting one that's much larger, and there's only one taxpayer. So, sadly, we may be going to property taxpayers because the only difference between us and them is we can't borrow. So they're just borrowing to give us money to make our kids pay debt for the next 100 years. And that's my report. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Inkster. Director Stanford.
Thank you. Ditto for so much of what everybody attended. One of the highlights was definitely the electric bus. That was lovely. There was just so much that's happening all the time. I also attended the tiny homes workshop, and I think what is coming out of that is exciting is tiny homes are essentially within the building code. It's just simply how they are attached to the ground that needs to be worked on. So the idea that there is a path forward to allowing for these structures to be a small part of our overall housing solution is exciting. And anywhere that has those housing restrictions or tight issues, it really does provide just that extra option. So that was one of the good things come out of this. The rural area directors session, interesting in that everybody has very profound problems. And you could really hear it in their voices, very stressed about just how do we move forward? And they were similar problems. And just so structurally desperate for more support, answers to their questions. Another interesting thing was how on the way that regional districts are structured, the push and pull between municipalities and rural planning, and how that can be twisted and needs to have some real access to how do we make sure that stays fair. So those were the highlights that, for me, that came out of that particular session. The ferry workshop, interesting. Again, these are really, there's no simple answers. And when BC Ferry says, okay, here's how much money we have to work with, and here's how much money we're allowed to raise on our tickets, and there's a gap, what do we do? These are questions that we're seeing at every level, from the smallest situation up to federally, globally. There's just a finite resource in every sector. So those are the kind of more profound items that I came out of with the UBCM. I did attend some ministers' meetings. I was lucky to speak with our MLA Randy Neal about New Brighton Dock, and we've got a follow-up from that meeting. Another minister meeting that I also had with Minister Neal was with Bowen Island Council, looking at ways to communicate about the Squamish Nation land use agreement that affects Howe Sound, and that community members are wondering, what does it mean? I think lots of us are just trying to figure out, how do we work with that over the long term and understand better and support the process, whatever that process is. So those are the kind of questions we came up with that. I think I'll leave it at that, because I think everybody else did a great job emphasizing the highlights of what was a very intense week.
It's one of the perks of going towards the end of the speakers list, is there's just less and less that you need to say. Director Lee.
Yeah, I wrote down notes and everybody talked about them already. What I'd like to point out, though, to anybody that's listening, is that the UBCM 2025 webpage, if you look in there, there's some extremely valuable stuff. There's a tab called presentations, so all the slideshows we saw are in there. And if you go under media room and you go down to the bottom, you can find YouTube videos of a lot of the stuff that was really of interest, such as Trish's speech on the Heritage Act is in there. The 3 lawyers are in there, all things that, and if you want to bring it to some of your residents associations, you can just put a link to them and it'll go take them right straight there, like UBC's been doing to us. And with that in mind, I actually have a couple of the presentations up. The one, the invasive species, actually was quite interesting and very complicated and very incomplete. There's some things that are still working, like the zebra mussels, for instance. They're not in BC yet. But then when you look at the Himalayan blackberries, basically you got to give it up because they're everywhere. And that's actually was kind of the theme of the presentation. What you can only do so much, and what can you do? They've actually had some luck with some of the insects, like the oak bee or the elm bug, and kept them at bay. And right at the very end of it, if you want to know more about it, there's resources at the end of the presentation that you can go to. And also, I pull up these presentations because it goes with my notes. But boy, it takes a long time to put the two together. I'll still be weeks yet before I can get my mind around everything we did, because there was sure a lot of valuable information. And we basically did 4.5 days of one after another. And, you put your notes down, but if you had the presentation in your hand at the same time and put the notes on the page, it would be extremely helpful. But now you got to go backwards and do it to fully understand what you saw. The tiny homes actually quite captivated me. and it was early on, it was on Tuesday morning. And they talked a lot about building codes and standards that would allow the safe year-round homes, CSA and building codes. And one of the takeaways I got is that the people building the tiny homes didn't realize how close they were to actually meeting those specs so they can be inhabited year-round. And they now are doing it. And one of the takeaways that I wanted to mention is that they're got a program in Fredericton, New Brunswick, and they're doing 96 tiny homes in 2 years. And so they'll be trying that out for us. They're going to be building them. They're going to be safe year-round. And the other one that really caught my attention, and I'm sure Kate would know about this, and that is the Island Trust establishing policies to permit clusters of the small dwelling units, which that is what I always thought we should be doing. It's effectively low-cost housing. And you're making use of the land by having clusters, allowing clusters with policies. And that can make a big difference. Get a person starting to own something, get their foot in the door. So I was quite thrilled with that tiny homes. There was sure a lot of stuff to take away, and it was quite hopeful. They also were talking tiny homes on wheels, but they also were talking tiny homes as just a house, a built house that you can live in. And I always thought that was cool too. Back in the old days, you'd see the bachelor homes with, like 2 rooms, one's a bathroom. And they were perfect accommodation. And finally, I have to have a shout out to our MLA, Randine. She was very helpful in getting us in to see ministers. And she made herself very available to us. And I was very appreciative of that. So that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Lee. Yeah, I've been taking a few notes as you guys have reminded me of things. Hey, I should mention this. And UBCM, I think probably my favorite session was actually the one that they did on AI and AI workflows in local government. Kelowna and the city of Vancouver, and they also had an instructor from, I think it was Langara, who were talking sort of a panel about how they're using AI within their organizations, some of the workflow, even if it's just like looking at permitting, just taking a few eyes off of those things to focus on higher value work. Kelowna has been doing a lot of experimenting with public-facing tools, which I went and experimented with afterwards. And you can go to the Kelowna website and their AI chatbot will talk you through whether you're allowed to build an auxiliary dwelling unit on your particular parcel of land. And it's pulling in the data from the zoning bylaw, from requirements for setbacks and development permit areas and things like that. And so you can be very conversationally and get to an answer that at least gives you somewhere to start. And they do acknowledge that there is some work that they've done chatbot-wise that they've had to abandon because there are things that don't get used enough. And so without maintenance of the data and maintenance of the prompts and things like that, some of this stuff will start to hallucinate, it'll start to malfunction. And so they've had services that they've experimented with and then ultimately had to jettison the AI tools because they just can't be made reliable for purpose. But they're even using it to predict when the next time the snowplow is going to come plow your street, based on where they are, how they're traveling, what the weather's looking like for the next 4 8 hours, that sort of thing. So that really was my favorite session of all of UBCM. And the one that the instructor actually made references of AI all the way from Clippy from Microsoft Office to Terminator, and how there are different levels of intelligence and where we are on the spectrum. And as far as we've come, even in just the last couple of years, we're only just barely dipping our toes in the water of what AI is going to be able to do in the years and decades ahead. not quite. We're closer to a Roomba than Clippy. But the session on invasive species, I thought was, I'm glad there were some takeaways for some people, because I spent time working in, landscaping. So when they're talking about blackberries or Japanese knotweed or like giant hogweed or any of this stuff, it's like, yeah, okay, it exists. We know that it exists. And I felt that they were light on talking about solutions other than monitoring and trying to get ahead of things where invasives are only just starting to take root, so to speak. I know air curtain burning has been successful in some places. The problem is that air curtain burners are considered a Category 2 fire by the province, so they're banned most of the year, which is, yeah, exactly, quite unfortunate because they're a really supervised tool. And so that might be a point of future advocacy with the province, actually, is loosening up some of the regulations around air curtain burning. Thank you, Director Lee, for pointing out that the sessions were mostly all recorded and publicly posted on the UBCM website. I attended a couple of the receptions that happened, after the main business of the day ended. Ecom had a good session where they were there to talk and answer questions from people. Also attended the one on libraries, which was co-hosted by a couple of folks, including Heather from Gibson's. Yeah, so they're really good. It's one of those things, like, my wife Jenny came with us, and she was astonished at how much go there is. Like, you think, oh, you're at a conference, it's social time, it's whatever, but there's stuff from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day. I attended one of the resource breakfast sessions on forestry on the Thursday morning, and you had to be in the door at 6:45. And it's a lot for sure. One of the things near the end of UBCM Friday morning, Randine, MLA Neil did pull together a sort of a BC Ferries discussion meeting. And so I got invited to the 9 a.m. meeting at 8:30 in the morning, and I basically grabbed Director McMahon because she was standing next to me, and we went to that session, and there were a couple of folks from Cathet, and there was a couple of us from the Lower Coast, and there was a couple of BC Ferries communications folks there, and there was a fair bit of, oh, well, this is why we can't do anything, and this is why the system's broken, and this is where the ferry commissioner has locked us into this, unaffordable fare that Director McMahon gets to take advantage of, and things like that. But one thing that they did offer was that the next time we're in Victoria, they are willing to give any local government officials a tour of their operations center in Victoria. And so we'll be there for April, so I'm hoping that we can take advantage of that. And also that they're willing to come speak to us more holistically about the system and some of the problems that they're having and how they got here and where they could use some help with advocacy and in maybe getting some way out of the problem. Because a lot of their problems are structural, but they're also regulated above their heads. So I do have a motion that I would like to put forward, which would be that BC Ferries be invited to present to the board as a follow-up to the 2025 UBCM meetings, and that the other local elected officials on the Sunshine Coast be invited to the session. And I've got a seconder for that, thank you. I didn't put a timeline with it. When we were having our conversation on the Friday, they did seem very genuinely wanting to be responsive. And so if we feel like we're getting a runaround on it, then we can raise a bit of a fuss about it. But I think they're genuinely interested in coming to speak to us and sharing more of the pain that they're feeling as an organization. Not to be making excuses for them, but there are some things that are outside of their ability to control. Director McMahon, do I see your hand?
Yes, the communication staff did have that deer in the headlights look. And they have a staff of 4, which sounds great until you realize they're supporting 27 routes. and that's not much. They are spread very, very thin. I came away from that wondering if an investment in better communications would not pay off for BC Ferries in being able to more effectively get people on sailings. But I'm not running BC Ferries, thank heavens, because the presentation by the president on why they're in trouble and how much trouble they're in was pretty impressive.
One thing that I thought was really interesting that I didn't know until the conversation we had on the Friday morning is that their communications folks that press out the public notifications actually sit in the operations center where they're overseeing the entire organization. And so if something is happening at a terminal, the public-facing communication staff are able to report on it instantly. But the person who reports down the chain to the folks that are operating in the terminals or on the boats is in an office down the hall and around the corner. And so it's one of those things that they just never really thought about. But this person that deals with the public is embedded in the operations center, whereas the internal communications team is not. So I think it's a good opportunity to get some more information from them and talk through it. So any other questions, discussion on the motion? If not, I will call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. And I think that's where I'm going to leave my UBCM report. And so with that, we have no new business. We do have an in-camera session, so I look for a motion that the public be excluded from attendance at the meeting in accordance with section 91D, G, I, and K of the Community Charter. Moved, seconded, all those in favor? That is carried. So we will look to see if there's anybody online with questions. And then we will just take a 2-minute break to reset the room as we go in camera.